This podcast is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. Learn more at listenfrederick.com.
That's number one. You kind of reset your
painful, tender to the touch. May also
same shoulder length, and the other.
So drinking alcohol certainly can be alcohol is a diuretic as well.
Yep.
But I don't know. They might actually have accidents in their bed if they drink too much.
Yeah, I mean, you should just know if you consume any liquid, it does have to come out eventually.
That's right. Pelvic floor exercises strengthen the muscles, helping control unwanted bladder contractions. There are even medications that can help regulate bladder and kidney function.
Oh, Lord.
Then
we're getting into a whole other...
Yeah. So bottom line, folks, there's a drug for everything. Now, do you want to talk about brittle bones or melatonin? Since we've talked about melatonin in the past, why don't we do that one? Also, we were talking about sleep.
True.
People take melatonin for sleep. Here's the funny thing. If you're taking melatonin to improve your sleep, you're going to be very disappointed. If you're taking melatonin for other health reasons, you're going to be very happy. And what I want you to do is go back and watch episode 97 and 98 of the Real Health Podcast. Maybe we can link it. Can we link it, Sean? Episode 97 and 98. Both were about melatonin. And literally, it's things that you had no idea that melatonin does.
Mm-hmm.
But very few of those have to do with being able to sleep better. Interestingly enough, and you'll be surprised because they say melatonin. They used to think melatonin is only produced in the brain, in the pineal gland, but it's not. It's produced in almost every cell of your body, including the GI tract, and we need to watch that because it helps mitochondrial function. And at age 50 and above, you become depleted. They say you have 5%. Right, of your total melatonin.
Less than 5%.
So children actually have high amounts of melatonin in their bodies. Now you can't test it because it's not in the blood. It's intracellular. So you really can't tell how much they have. But anytime there's been an issue with melatonin toxicity, it wasn't because it wasn't in the elderly. It was in children.
Yeah.
So
and here's a couple things that you need to know. First of all, melatonin it's not just a supplement, it's actually a hormone. It's considered a hormone in the body that the body creates. And just like vitamin D, which our body also creates, sometimes when we are deficient, we do need to supplement with that. But I do believe that because melatonin is really one of the biggest anti-aging hormones, or things that we can supplement with, I really believe that there are probably parties who have done a really good job to change how melatonin is marketed. And they've created such a worry and a concern around melatonin when there is so much safety in it. It's a little sad to me, because I will tell you, it has been life-changing. High doses of melatonin has been life-changing for me. I mean, it's been more impactful than anything else I've done.
Yeah.
And so I would highly recommend going back.
Please, before you put anything from this article into action for yourself, go and watch those 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. You'll be blown away. So it says, New York Times, is melatonin bad for your heart? Here's what to know. This week, a series of headlines warned about, and by this week, this is November 5th. This week, a series of headlines warned about the potential risk of taking the sleep supplement melatonin, saying new research had linked it to a 90% increase in heart failure. Now, here's the thing. These numbers, they're not accurate.
Correct.
Because 90%, you're like, oh my gosh, that is such a large number, 90%. But when I give you the actual numbers of how they calculated that, you'll be like, that is not much at all.
Correct.
So,
and it's not been peer reviewed.
Well, but the article hasn't even been published yet.
Right. But I'm saying, it's not even a done deal.
It says the research is from an unpublished study set to be presented at the American Heart Association Scientific Conference in New Orleans next week, which would be this week. And by the time you watch this, it'll be last week. But sleep experts say it is not possible to draw conclusions about melatonin from its findings, noting some major limitations of the study, which has not been peer-reviewed, including the fact that it did not prove cause and effect. A more likely explanation of results, experts argue, is that insomnia itself, or a health condition that can cause insomnia, such as undiagnosed sleep apnea, could be to blame. In that case, melatonin would be an innocent bystander, said Dr. Sujay Kansagra, a sleep physician at Duke Health, who was not involved in the study. Now, here's something, and let me read a little more before I tell you my thoughts here. Researchers analyzed international health records from more than 130,000 adults with insomnia who were sorted into two groups. One group included people who took melatonin supplements for at least 1 year, and the other included those who had no record of taking melatonin.
There's so
Now,
many things wrong with that.
Keep in mind, they looked at 130,000 people who have been diagnosed with insomnia, who have self-reported inability to sleep. What they did not look at is heart failure causes insomnia.
Right.
But they didn't nowhere in here does it talk about how heart failure can cause insomnia.
Right. So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
It's hilarious, but they're looking at people with insomnia who end up with heart failure.
Well,
but they didn't say if they had it before.
Right. They're also not looking at what was the dosing of the melatonin, how was it produced?
Right.
Where was it from? Because if it's different, like I've had people go, "Oh, I took 5 milligrams of melatonin. I was so groggy in the morning." Well, you probably took a crap product. I'm going to just be honest with you, because when you have a product that is really not, they haven't tested it. We don't know, that it's authentically melatonin and what the sourcing is and all that. You really don't know what you're taking. So this means nothing to me unless they're all on the same and we know it's a good product.
Right, and here's the numbers. The risk of heart failure was 4.6% in those in the melatonin group. 4.6% of them had heart failure. It didn't say if they had it before the insomnia,
correct,
or caused by the insomnia, compared to 2.7% of those who had no record of taking melatonin. So 2.7%, if they didn't take melatonin, had insomnia, had heart failure. Now, I looked up national averages. United States population, 2.4 to 2.6% of the United States population has heart failure. So that means those with insomnia without melatonin just went from 2.6 to 2.7, which is a 0.1 increase in percentage. Hardly anything. But they didn't talk about that. I also looked up what percentage of the older people have heart failure.
Right.
This is not related to insomnia at all. Just generally, if you're over 65, 10 to 15% of that population has heart failure. Now, so the group taking melatonin is 4.6%, but the older population is 10 to 15%. And we have no idea what the ages of these 130,000 people were.
Correct.
Put another way, this is what the article says. People who took melatonin, the study suggested, had a 90% higher risk of heart failure. 90%, they get that because they go 4.6 is 90% higher than 2.7. They were also more than 3.5 times as likely to be hospitalized for heart failure and were twice as likely to die of any cause. Now,
who funded this research?
Now, here's the thing. Look at this number right here. 23 to 73% of people who have heart failure have insomnia.
That's a pretty high number.
So how do you know these people didn't have heart failure before they were diagnosed with insomnia? And the heart failure is causing their insomnia. Well, clearly, if it's a heart failure related issue, melatonin is not going to help them. So that's up to 73% of people with heart failure have insomnia. And other studies said 33%. So let's just say 33 because it's the smaller number. That's 1/3. 1/3 of everybody who has everybody who has heart failure has insomnia. So I think this study is all backwards.
I think so.
Let's look at how much heart failure causes insomnia.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't say whether taking the melatonin helped them sleep any better, which I bet you it didn't. It didn't help them at all. Melatonin is one of the most widely used sleep aids. What we found was just an association, not proof of causation. That distinction can be easily lost in translation.
Well, especially if you're reporting it like this.
Yeah, one of the study's major drawbacks is that it only counted people with documented melatonin prescriptions. In the United Kingdom and several European Union countries, getting melatonin requires a prescription. But in the United States and some other countries, anyone can buy melatonin supplements over the counter without consulting a doctor. So they're saying that some of these people, because some of them are in the United States, they only looked at people at prescription melatonin. So how do we know if the others didn't take melatonin also? And if they have prescription melatonin, then they must be, I don't know, they must be in worse shape. Who knows? I mean,
Well, then
it
what's
says,
the dosing? I've never even heard of a doctor prescribing melatonin.
well, that's Europe. Because their FDA regulates supplements, ours doesn't,
True.
which I think is smart. I think they should regulate. If they're going to regulate drugs, they should regulate supplements. Supplements are drugs, guys. So it says this means that some of the participants in the study's non-melatonin group may actually have been taking supplements too, even if it wasn't reported in their medical records. It also lacked information about melatonin dosage and insomnia severity. Gosh, that's so much important information here. Both of these factors could affect heart risks. The risk of heart failure was quite low in both groups. So they're saying the risk of heart failure is pretty low anyways in both groups, whether they took melatonin or didn't.
But I love how they lead with 90%.
I know.
Of a risk. That's so stupid.
It's
Chat does say that studies show that 50 to 60% of people with heart failure report insomnia symptoms. That's huge.
yeah, about half.
Yeah.
Half the people have
At
heart
least half.
failure
Yeah.
can't sleep well.
Which is compared to 30% in the general population.
There you go.
Crazy.
30% of general people have
General population have
insomnia.
insomnia.
Wow, that's a big number too.
It is.
The study has too many limitations to determine whether melatonin increases the risk of heart failure or even affects the heart at all. Most sleep experts agree that melatonin is not an effective insomnia fix, and I would agree with that as well. The hormone works by signaling to your brain that bedtime is drawing near, not by directly inducing sleep. And you can increase natural production of melatonin by just dimming the lights a couple hours before you go to bed, cooling the house down. So low temperature and darker rooms can cause your body to produce melatonin. Sometimes if you take melatonin, your body thinks it already slept.
Yeah.
And it can actually backfire on you.
Yeah. It's really that I think is the one thing that people probably don't talk about enough is if you're going to be going through the effort of taking melatonin, let your body and actively prepare your body for sleep. And there are those things that you need to do. When we take melatonin at night, we don't watch TV without our amber glasses. So if we're going to take melatonin half an hour before and we know we're going to be on a device or watching a movie or something like that, we put our amber glasses on so that the blue light doesn't impede that shutdown process, if you will, that your body's trying to go through in order to get you to a peaceful rest. So if you can reduce we've actually replaced a lot of our lamp light bulbs with amber light bulbs, which just gives a softer, it's almost like being in candlelight. So it's really, really, really nice to be able to have those things. They're not super expensive. We have a nice little remote with all of our lights, and we know then that in the evening we can begin to turn off those harsh lights. We can reduce some of that blue light that is impacting us, and get our bodies to the state that it needs to be to have restful sleep. I'm telling you, since we've started those processes, I'm somebody who suffered from insomnia for years before we met.
Yep.
And I'm just blown away at how significantly my sleep has improved.
Right.
So
now don't start taking melatonin before watching those two episodes, 97 and 98. And one of the things that article said when we reported on it was that melatonin actually increases bone density.
Yep.
and it heals the GI tract and improves gut function, all that stuff. So we have one last article. Can we run through this quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's
Talking
that?
about creatine. So the whole basis
Oh,
of
wait, I was going to do bone density
Oh, I'm sorry.
because melatonin improves bone
Bone
density.
density. Sorry, and we were talking about creatine, which also they're saying impacts along with the
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
So
do you want to
bone
do that
density
one?
no, we can do it on the next one, but you had mentioned creatine, so I want to make sure that we talk about that next time.
Okay. Yeah, I take creatine. Actually, recently there's been a lot of crazy stuff about creatine. They say women need it more than men.
Yeah, especially post-menopause. They say you need even higher dosing.
You don't take creatine.
I started yesterday.
Oh.
I actually put it in my shake. I made a shake yesterday
Good job.
before I went to the
No
gym.
wonder I didn't have enough today. You took my creatine, didn't you?
Yeah, you told me to. You told me to take a scoop.
Just kidding. All right. We'll have to buy more.
Brittle bones.
However, okay, this article, it says it's under the heading of the new old age. Why brittle bones aren't just a woman's problem. Then it talks about this guy named Roland Klein, who is actually a dentist.
Ronald.
Oh, sorry. Roland. That's the dyslexia right there. I just switched the N and the L.
See?
I just proved I'm not lying when I say I'm dyslexic. This is the first time in 100 and how many episodes my dyslexia showed up.
Yeah. There might be a few times, but
I've got this thing under control.
yeah, you've pretty conquered it, pretty much.
Ronald Klein, who was a dentist, was biking around his neighborhood in North Wales, PA. In 2006. There's a North Wales, PA.
I was just thinking to myself, that sounded so
British,
and then we got to
or
PA. It was like
English or whatever.
Yeah.
It's Wales is in the Great Britain. In 2006, and tried to jump a curb. As the bike toppled, he thrust out his left arm to break the fall. It didn't seem like a serious accident. At the emergency room, x-rays showed that he had fractured both his hip, which required surgical repair, and his shoulder.
Man.
A 52-year-old is not supposed to break a hip and a shoulder, he said. So he asked for a bone density scan. He's 52. His doctor didn't even think about ordering one. But he's like, it wasn't a big fall. I broke 2 bones. Why did that happen? So and the test showed that he had developed osteoporosis, a progressive condition increasing sharply with age that thins and weakens bones and can lead to serious fractures. Dr. Klein, the dentist, immediately began a drug regimen, and now 70 years old, remains on one. So from 52 to 70, he's been taking this drug. Osteoporosis occurs so much more commonly in women, for whom medical guidelines recommend universal screenings after age 65. That a man who was not a healthcare professional might not have thought about a scan. So he's lucky that he thought about that. About 1 in 5 men over 50 will suffer an osteoporotic fracture in his remaining years. And among older adults, about a quarter of hip fractures occur in men. So 75%, I guess, are in women, and then 25% are in men. Men have worse outcomes, though. I guess men have worse outcomes of the common cold. Come on. We can't handle jack.
Y'all aren't built the same.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No.
But you can pee standing up. And that's a benefit. That is a huge benefit.
Some can, some can't.
That's true. I'm not saying everyone has good aim, but you do have the ability. But then we got everything else.
It's called streaming.
Tell our boys that.
They're higher streaming capabilities. Men don't do as well in recovery as women. Not a surprise. With higher rates of death, 25% to 30% within a year. Disability and institutionalization is also higher. A 50-year-old man is more likely to die from a complication of a major osteoporotic fracture than from prostate cancer.
Okay, so then let's just talk. Sometimes I kick myself for searching stuff, because then I just go, what is wrong with our system? There's many things. We all know that. So I just put into Atlas, I wanted to know, like, what's the typical age range for a bone density decline in women? Just talking about women.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that we don't usually recommend a bone density screening until after 65. Early bone loss begins between the ages of 35 to 40. So is it that the bone density test can't pick it up earlier? Or why would we wait like 20 years, 30 years past the time that we begin losing our bone density to begin screening for it?
You remember when we had Dr. Berg on the show?
Mm-hmm.
He said osteoporosis is a blood chemistry issue. It has nothing to do with
Right.
exercise
Yeah, I forgot that.
or anything else. He said it's because their blood is too acidic, and it leaches calcium out of the
Right.
bones, and so you alkalinize the blood, and osteoporosis stops. Go back and watch that episode.
Yeah, I go, why are we waiting so long then? You know what I mean? Let's tell people that. Let's fix it. Fixing that
Well-
should be much easier than fixing a bone density issue, like making sure your blood is not too acidic.
It says they only screen women because insurance won't pay for regular screenings for men.
Right. But we're screening women even at such
Too
a
late,
late
yeah.
age. I go, it's not preventative.
Right.
At that point, you're just doing it to throw them on an extra medication.
Right.
You're not going, hey, let's look at this in advance. Primary care physicians, dang it, this is your area.
Mm-hmm.
Start talking to your patients earlier about this. Do your
But
due
also,
diligence.
what if every man and every woman around 35 started to do some of the things that prevent that?
Well, maybe we start it beforehand.
Ideally, I mean, exercise, but
Lifting
I told you I'm
weights.
going to tell you about two types of exercise. Actually, lifting weights doesn't increase bone density. Research, there's been some research that said, that it may prevent bone loss,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't increase bone density. But
Okay.
there were two things that did increase bone density.
That's interesting.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
But protecting the bone that you have also, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's good.
Yeah. So 49% of men said yes to a scan. So they looked at a big group of men, I guess. 49% said they wanted a bone density scan. Half of those tested had osteoporosis.
Don't tell
or,
Big Pharma. They're coming for you.
or osteopenia. Well, yeah, because now
Guys, they're coming for
now
you.
they're gonna sell some serious osteoporosis drugs. Cha-ching.
They're like, woo, we have a new demographic.
Yeah, which is funny because that's the main reason they do mammograms and stuff is because they can get more customers. So no, I'm not saying skip your mammogram. Please don't misunderstand. But some of these screenings are designed to get more patients into more treatments. Most of them began medications to preserve or rebuild their bones. Can I say something about osteoporosis medication?
Please.
Now, listen, I heard an expert talking about this. I haven't seen literature, but it kind of made sense. Bone is supposed to look like a sponge under a microscope. There's holes in it.
Right.
The reason for that is because it needs to be pliable. It needs to bend.
A little bit.
Like high rises, when the wind blows, they need to sway. If they don't sway, they break.
Right.
Trees, same thing. If a tree doesn't sway in the wind, it will break and fall. It has to sway, it has to bend. Bone is the same way. Under pressure, it needs to be able to bend a little bit. Now, you don't see that bending ability, that elasticity, but it's there. Now, what happens is the holes in the sponge-like bone cells or actual bone content, those holes get bigger in osteoporosis. So it still looks like a sponge, but just has bigger holes.
Gotcha.
So it's more likely it can break when it bends. When they put people on bone density medication, I'm not going to name any of the drugs unless they show up in here. I think they list a couple of the drugs in the article. It fills those holes with calcium, which increases density on X-ray and on DEXA scan.
But doesn't it decrease
but
pliability?
it reduces pliability. It reduces the ability of that bone to bend. And we don't know. There's never been a study done to see if, and in fact, this article mentions it. Studies haven't been done to see if it reduces fractures. it does increase bone density, but we don't know if it reduces fractures.
And
Now,
if it,
again, I haven't seen this written anywhere. I haven't seen study on this. So just, take it as what it is. I was just in a seminar listening to a teacher, an expert explaining this, and this is what they said. This was a medical doctor teaching a seminar. I don't remember his name.
so if that is the case, if it does increase bone density, but because it reduces pliability, say fractures, you're still at risk for fractures, does that then make that medication useless?
I'm not going to say that. We'll get in trouble.
But you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
I mean, you have to ask yourself then, why would I take it if it's being marketed as the benefit to help you reduce fractures, but it does in fact not do that, if that's what comes about from that. I think it would definitely make me wonder
Yeah.
what the benefit is then.
Right.
Because there's definitely still side effects.
I don't think I don't think the manufacturer of the drug wants to know that answer. So it says 18 months. After 18 months, these are the men who were osteopenia or osteoporotic, said after 18 months, bone density had increased modestly for those in the intervention group, who were more likely to stick to their drug regimens than those patients of either sex in real-world conditions. The study didn't continue long enough to determine whether bone density increased further or fractures declined. So they don't know if fractures declined. But the researchers plan a secondary analysis to track that. Good luck getting that one done. Men have bigger and thicker bones and tend to develop osteoporosis 5 to 10 years later than women do. So let me tell you the two exercises that can increase bone density. One is impact. Jumping increases bone density.
Jump rope?
So it's a jump rope. Anything where you have impact. So walking isn't going to do it. Weight training isn't going to do it. But jump rope will. Anything where your heel strikes the ground. Now you have to strike hard. Just gentle. Let you come up on your toes and let your heel hit the ground. Come up and let it heal. You don't have to jump off the ground or anything. But that impact will stimulate bone growth. So it's impact, not weight training. There is another one. There's a gym. It's fairly new. It's called OsteoStrong. So this gym has things like the leg press. It has leg press machines that don't move. It's not a sled that slides up and down, but there's a computer attached to it, and it tells you how much pressure you're putting on it. So you sit in this leg press machine, you put your feet against the plate, and you press as hard as you can, and it says, okay, you generated 600 pounds of pressure. And you're supposed to hold that for like 10, 20 seconds. Or as long as you can, I guess. I don't know the exact amount. And what happens is that kind of sustained force, pressing as hard as you can, increases bone density as well. So there's one in New Jersey. I think there's a few others around the country. They're growing. But I read about this gym, OsteoStrong. Look it up. They've got a website and everything. But I read about it in Tony Robbins' book, Life Force.
Well, there's probably, you could do the same thing at your own gym.
Yeah.
So
but you just won't know how much pressure you're generating because
Yeah.
your goal is to always beat that. So if last week I generated 1,200 pounds per square inch of pressure with my feet, this week my goal is to do 1,250. Just try to go up, press harder and harder and harder each time, and that's what generates being able to press. And what's funny is they had 80-year-olds doing this exercise, and then they went to a regular leg press machine. They were able to lift 500 pounds.
That's crazy.
80-year-olds. Sean just said we're talking too much. Actually, he gave us a hand gesture. I won't show you what the hand gesture was. Now they want to know what the hand
Sean's
gesture
mom
was.
is going to think.
Use your imagination. But yeah, so these 80-year-olds were able to lift a ton of weight, and they surprised everybody, and their bone density was really strong. So that's the gym called OsteoStrong.
Okay.
What else do you want to
Maybe
know?
We should open one here.
Yeah, I'd like to get on that. It actually builds a lot of muscle too.
I bet we could get some of those machines.
Yeah, if you have the money,
Yeah.
Pay for it. Bob Grossman, 74, a retired public school teacher in Portland, blamed poor posture instead and told himself to straighten up. So if you start to see hunching over in your upper back, you probably have osteoporosis. and you should get a screening. So clinical trials have found that osteoporosis drugs increase bone density in men as in women, but most male studies have been too small or lacked enough follow-up to show whether fractures also decline. So again, they're saying fractures may not decline. The test is between $100 and $300. It's a DEXA scan, so you can pay for it out of pocket. I think it's worth it. You should do it. Most people don't know that their bones have deteriorated until one of them breaks.
Mm.
Other risk factors: falls, a family history of hip fractures, a fairly long list of other health conditions, including rheumatoid arthritis, hyperthyroidism, and Parkinson's disease. Also, smoking, excessive alcohol use increase the odds of osteoporosis as well. A number of medications also do a number on your bone density, notably steroids and prostate cancer drugs. So steroids like cortisol, corticosteroids, do reduce bone density. But there's one drug they didn't mention, which is acid reducers, stomach acid reducers. For people who have GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disorder, when they take a drug that reduces acid in their stomach, they won't have acid reflux anymore, but they're not absorbing nutrients out of their food properly. And so that leads to osteoporosis.
You can't fix one thing chemically and not impact something else.
That's why most people are on multiple medications, not just one.
Yeah, and a lot of times the other medications are to fix
Yeah,
some of the
exactly.
side
Like
effects
you'll
of the
see
other.
people who are on no medications, and then you'll see people who are on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 medications. But you rarely see anybody who's on just one. Oral medications like Fosamax or Actonel, intravenous formulations like Reclast, daily self-injections of Forteo or Timlos, or twice annual injections of Prolia are treatments for osteoporosis. Lifestyle changes like exercising, taking calcium and vitamin D supplements. By the way, I've put a lot of people on calcium and vitamin C. I don't think I've ever seen anybody's bone density increase. But when you get people to jump, their bone density increases. Stopping smoking, drinking only moderately will help, but other aren't sufficient to stop or reverse bone loss. Now, one thing that study said, when you take 6 milligrams of melatonin daily for over a year, their bone density increased by 2.3%.
That's pretty impressive.
Not only did it stop decreasing, it increased by 2.3%.
That's worth a look.
That's miraculous. That's melatonin. So anyway, disabilities after hip fractures are high. 2/3 of older people will not regain their prior mobility after they break something. So this is a serious issue.
It is, for sure. But we have to know and understand that we can't start when we're 60.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, you can. Sometimes you have to. But
if you're 60, start.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we shouldn't wait until we're 60. Let me reframe that. We should be thinking about that in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s.
No matter how old you are, start now.
Like, exercise regularly. Only, we just had a conversation.
When's the last time you jumped?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll jump today.
If you ask our boys, when's the last time you jumped? They're like, I'm jumping right now.
Right now.
When I'm talking to you, I'm jumping because I can't stand still.
I'm thinking about a conversation we had with a family member, right?
Yes.
Who was like, working out
She said working out
work for me.
Didn't help me.
And we literally, I'm sure she probably felt a little overwhelmed.
She's watching.
She probably is. But we're like, it's not, nobody works out. Well, very few people work out because they just love working out. Like, I love going and spending an hour beating my body up, what I mean, to make it stronger.
Getting tired.
Like, nobody has time for it. I mean, very few people actually love the act of going to the gym. Most people love the result of going to the gym, but putting your body through that can be challenging.
It's hard work.
But it's necessary because the challenge is it's not just about you. Right? If you won't do it for yourself at 30, 40, 50, then for the love of Peter, do it for your family, because the challenge is if something happens to you and you do fall, you have an injury and your body's not strong enough to recoup, then that then put the responsibility on your family members. And while that is what family is for, we should always take care of our own. We should also be working really hard to not put our family members in that position, right? Like, we want to work really hard so our kids don't have to take care of us. I know they would, just like we'll take care of our family, your mom and your aunt. But do we want to ever deliberately put them in the position to do that?
Right.
No, we want to do everything we can now to ensure that we're staying as healthy as possible so that we aren't someone else's responsibility, right? Because it's taxing. No matter what, it's taxing on both parties. I know, because I've been there. I've had to take care of family members. And while I did it and I'm grateful for that time, boy, if we all just take care of ourselves, it's just better. There you have it.
There you have it. So good. I can't top that off. So good job. Thank you everybody for joining us. We will talk about creatine next time. So please tune in. Very, very important topic, creatine. And until then, be safe, stay healthy, be strong, and take good care of yourself. Exercise and sleep.
See you next time.
Ciao.
Live radio, local podcasts, the Frederick Podcast Network at listenfrederick.com.